Hey everyone, welcome to episode 2 of the Mark Wales podcast. I'm going to talk a bit about my own story. I'm going to tell you my origin story, where I came from as a little tacker, and where I've ended up. I'll just go through the whole thing so you can understand kind of the experiences I've had and where I'm come from and why I want to give you guys a hand. So kick back, enjoy yourself. See you in a minute. Welcome to the Mark Wales podcast. I'm Mark Wales, an ex-special operations major, now award-winning entrepreneur, best-selling author, and two-time Survivor player. Since I was 12 years old, I wanted to join the SAS, and in the 30 years since, I've worked in elite teams on battlefields, in academics, and on TV. If you're interested in what makes an elite team and how you can improve your own leadership skills, then stand by. Hey everyone, welcome to the Mark Wales podcast. I'm going to talk to you a bit about my story, where I've come from, what I've been doing with all 42 of my years. I won't go blow by blow because that would just destroy anyone. But I'll tell you some of the interesting parts anyway, because there's been a few crackers in there. So I'll definitely go through those, the parts that kind of shaped me and pushed me in different directions, and those forks in the road that everyone's had, but I'll just talk you through my thinking and some of the things that happened here that have shaped my views today. So I remember in the winter of 5+ years ago, 2017, I was in New York. It was winter. I'd had a rough year. I was working hard at McKinsey, and I'd seen this TV show in Australia called Australian Survivor, and I decided to apply for it because I just wanted something different, and it sounded like something really cool to do. And I remember doing a Skype audition where I just talked to the casting agent. They're like, tell us what you've been doing with your life. And as I went through and talked about it all, I was sitting there going, this is actually quite a lot. And she was, when I was done talking about my time in the army and leaving the army and going through training in business school and all of the things I'd experienced, she was like, wow, that's actually a lot of stuff. And I had never talked about it from start to finish. It's the first time I had. So for me, it was a bit of an eye-opener. I was like, well, it has been a lot. And I think I'm quite hard on myself sometimes. I'm always impatient and trying to move forward. But when I sat and reflected on everything I'd been up to, it was a lot. So now I go a bit easier on myself. But I'll tell you some of the main things. The first, I was born in WA, right? It's back in 1979. It was a while ago. Different country, different everything. And we were born in Newman. It was a mining town way up north. Both my parents worked there. I had two brothers, one older, one younger. And we just lived free range. Kids just walking around barefoot in these red dirt kind of towns. But, both my parents ended up taking us to Perth in Western Australia. And I did primary school there and high school. And I remember in high school one day, a mate of mine who was an army cadet, really loved army stuff, real buff. He walked into class and he had this magazine, and it had the images in it showed a hostage rescue that happened in London in the 1980s. Really dramatic pictures of a hostage rescue team, like dressed in black, and they had submachine guns and gas masks, and they were going into this building to do a hostage rescue. And I just couldn't believe my eyes. I was like, this looks like the most exciting thing in the world. I'm like, who is this? And he goes, well, this is the British SAS. They do hostage rescue, and this is one job they did at the Iranian embassy in London way back in 1980. And he started telling me about the SAS and what they were and what they did, and they're an elite army team. And the more I heard about it, the more I thought, wow, that's exactly what I want to do. So I remember leaving class and I went straight to the library and I said, look, can you give me all the books you've got on the SAS? And there must have been like 2 or 3 books. There was barely any. And they related to the recently completed Gulf War, and they were just information books. And the more I read about it, the more I was like, wow, this is amazing. And I found out that Australia had their own SAS force. We had our own SAS unit. So I thought, wow, I've got to join. And the problem was that you have to go through the military, and it takes a long time to join. So I started doing that. I started looking at a career in the military. I had a mate who wanted to go to the Defence Academy in Canberra. It's like you get to do your undergrad degree, you graduate as an officer, and it just looked like a really exciting career. And if it didn't work out, if I didn't get into the SAS, I still had a degree to fall back on and training as an officer. So that single day is what pushed me towards a career in the army. And the whole time I was in the army, the only thing I had in mind was going to the SAS. So everything I did kind of revolved around preparing me for that. So I chose an infantry unit to join when I left Duntroon. The infantry is foot soldiers. Basically, if you're a foot soldier, you're infantry, and that's similar to what the SAS does. They're heavily drawn from infantry forces. So I ended up going to 2 RAR. They're an infantry battalion way up in Townsville, second to none. And, it was fun. I went there with a few mates. I went through the Defence Academy with them. We all went to the 2nd Battalion up north, and we were lucky enough to go to East Timor. So I was deployed there. First time I'd been to a third world country like that. The first time I'd seen pretty bad suffering. Like I remember looking after refugees that were coming back into East Timor. They'd been displaced for nearly 2 years, and they were in terrible shape. It was a really rough thing to see. It was heartbreaking. They're all families, they're all tiny kids, and that really made me realize that there are parts of the world that really have it rough. We have it really good in Australia, and I think it just gave me that perspective, and it was a good introduction to field operations, like going away, deploying. How do you maintain comms? How do you make sure you've got control over everyone? How do you maintain physical security? It was a good introduction to all that stuff because it was still considered warlike operations, but there just wasn't mass battles happening. There was none of that. It was just skirmishes occasionally between different units, and it pretty much stopped by the time I got there. And so around that time, I was in my early 20s, and I knew I was getting closer to being able to go to the SAS. So I applied for the selection course. I knew it was about 3 weeks long, and I'd had mates go through it before me. And I'd heard about the structure of the course. I knew it was bloody hard. Like it had these really horrendous forced marches and physical training activities, and you don't get sleep, and you don't get food, and you don't get water, and it's high stress. So I was kind of mentally preparing myself for that for a long time. And I remember applying for the course, training for it, and I walked onto the course. Must have been 100 other candidates there with me. I think I was candidate number 87. You don't forget your candidate number. There's just a number written on your arm, and I was like candidate 87. And I put myself through my paces on the course, and week by week I kind of hung in there. There were people going, getting knocked out of the course. At one point I was badly injured. I had like really bad knee and really bad blisters in one foot. I could barely walk, but kind of just hung in there. Even though I wasn't doing well, I didn't by any stretch. I taped myself up and kept going. But the funny thing is I started to heal. Like my knee got a bit better, my feet got better, and I actually healed during the course, and I started to come out of it. And then by the end, you do this starvation activity where it's called lucky dip. They basically put you in teams of 6 or 7. You get no food, you get no sleep, and you're expected to lead your team around the clock through these impossible missions. And it was just horrendous. You're just running on petrol fumes. You just got nothing in the tank. And they're trying to see what you're like under combat conditions, because it's kind of like that. You don't get food, and you don't get sleep much. Like things can get really intense. So they're trying to see what you're able to do when you're in that condition. And part of it is just cooperating with people, not being an asshole, not being overbearing, but being very mission focused, helping everyone out, getting in the trenches yourself, being a good person that people respond to well. That was actually most of the battle. And most importantly, not giving up when things go wrong or you're doing a bad job, like just keeping your mind in it. And they select people that don't need a lot of feedback. Like you intrinsically know how to judge how you're going, whether you're underperforming or overperforming. Like they it's more often the former than the latter. I'll give you that red hot tip. There's a lot of underperformance, or it feels that way. And so they're looking for people that just stay in the game no matter what. And that attribute is so important. It's perseverance, really. It's just no matter how hard this gets, we're just going to keep iterating on it, keep moving, try something different. Even if we fail, we're just going to keep going. And I think that attitude is what I think I went easy on myself in that sense. I was like, you're going to get a lot of things wrong on this. Just stay in the game. And someone else had told me, it was a SAS officer, a captain. He said, look, no matter what happens, just don't give up. Just do not give up unless they physically bring in the military police and put handcuffs on you and frog march you out there. Like, do not leave the course. And I think that was really good advice. Like, sometimes you just got to push through no matter how ugly it is and no matter how bad a job you're doing. Sometimes just surviving is a pretty, can be a really good outcome. So, yeah, everyone has those moments in your life where you're like, I'm a terrible parent, I'm a terrible employee or a terrible boss. Doesn't matter. Just keep working hard. So getting through selection was a huge achievement for me. I was really proud of it. I went into training for the SAS. I think the reinforcement cycle was like about 18 months long, but it was, a dream of dreams. It was like everything you wanted to do as a soldier, you got to do there. It was all demolitions and heavy weapons and parachuting and all this fun stuff, and such a great cohort of people that I joined with. And by this time, I know that Australia was starting to recommit forces to Afghanistan. That was starting to pick up again. And by the time we'd finished our reinforcement cycle, that's where we ended up getting deployed to. We all got sent to Afghanistan in some capacity, whether it was headquarters or leading a troop. And I did some protective security detachments. I was like walking people through the different countries as a protection detail. But my first combat tour was 2007, and I got the chance to take a team and do these combat missions with them. And I had patrol commanders, so you have a team of 30 if you're a troop commander. That's broken down to about 4 teams of 6. And the patrol commanders are senior soldiers. They're generally sergeant level, maybe corporal level, but they're experienced. They know what they're doing. They're good at their job, and they honestly want everything to work well. They're trying to get the troop commanders they're trying to nurture them through their job as much as they can. In most cases, not everyone's like that, but in most cases that was true. And the work that I did on that first tour with my patrol commanders, I'm really proud of it. We actually went back to some original kind of what they call green rolls jobs, which is in close country, undetected, collecting information on the enemy. We did that quite a lot and that was hard to do in Afghanistan. It's very hard because of the nature of the terrain there. But we were able to do a lot of that. And during that first tour, I remember the first bit of combat we got into was we were doing a clearance of the Chura Valley. I remember at one point, there's a lot of soldiers in this valley by now in the morning. We're doing this clearance. Me and the team were heading south along a creek line because we were going to put in an ambush position. We're a bit behind time. It was now getting daylight. And if you've ever been in a greenbelt valley in Afghanistan, walking around in daytime is incredibly dangerous because that's when they organise their forces and they can come and fight you. And that's what they did to us. We ran into it's effectively an ambush. They were stationary, we were moving, we ran into their formation and they shot at us. Ended up, Sergeant Matthew Locke, one of my patrol commanders, was shot and killed at the start of that battle. Really capable soldier. And yeah, he was killed almost straight away at the start of that battle. We spent the next, I think it was 12 hours trying to get out of that valley, using everything we had, attack helicopters, snipers in support, just trying to regain some initiative, trying to clear sections that we could clear, help out the assaulting force. But that was a very busy, intense day to have that happen, and I knew it was going to be a major thing that had happened in my life, and I wasn't so much worried about me as much as I was worried about, I guess, I remember thinking about Matt's family and everything else that was happening and trying not to incur more casualties. So yeah, it was tough. I remember it was really tough, and I knew it would have an impact on me for years. And I mean, we did a lot more work on that tour. And by the end of the tour, we got a lot better at the work. And I remember being faced with the prospect of going home, and I knew I'd have to deal with all this that had happened. I hadn't had time to even think about it. But when I got home, I went through all the processing that you have when you come back from warfighting. And we'd lost Matt, and I felt totally responsible for it. I think it's drummed into young soldiers and young officers. If something happens in your unit, it's your responsibility. And so I'd taken on that a lot, and I think part of fighting, it doesn't matter where it is, things are going to happen sometimes that just are going to be a bit out of your control, and that was one of them. And I don't think I had that perspective early on, and it was very hard for me to accept that was it was just a hard thing to go through. I don't even know what I'm saying. It was difficult, and there was a lot of grief. It was very hard. And so I spent months trying to get over that. I had post-traumatic stress disorder and depression immediately after that tour. I know that it was obvious to me. I was socially withdrawn, had all these other issues that were manifesting themselves in different ways. That's why I went to that neuroscientist. I think I mentioned in the last episode. He said, look, this is what happens to the human brain when your life's under threat. These are the changes that happen. This is how we can get you back on track. And we talked through all those things around looking after your health, but the basics, getting good rest, getting exercise, having a clean diet. Like those fundamentals were so important to my recovery. So it was great. And I had a lot of good mates, a lot of close mates that were super understanding, and they helped me out a lot. Even if it was just taking me for a surf trip, like that stuff was super handy. So lucky to have good mates in my corner. And all through that time I was in the SAS, I was able to get back. I did a few more tours. I went back every year, 2008, 2009, 2010. And then by my last tour, I was really starting to think about leaving the army and going into business, because the whole reason I joined the army was to do those trips, experience combat, do those trips, lead people overseas. And I'd gotten to that point, and I'm thinking, do I keep going down this road, or is it time for something else? And for some reason, I'd thought for a long time about going to the US and studying over there. It just looked like it was such an exciting place. They take school so seriously. It's a land of, optimists. And for me, the chance to train over there was amazing. So I started applying for some business schools. I remember looking at initially Columbia Business School. I was like, I want to go to New York City. And then I read about the other top schools. There was like Wharton, Harvard, Stanford. They were all top MBAs. And I thought, you know what? Why don't I just try for one of them? And if I don't get them, I can adjust and try something else. And so in my first round of applications to business school, I applied for those top three, Harvard, Stanford, Wharton. And I think Columbia, I applied for Booth, which is in Chicago. Don't know why. But applied for that. And I had to sit a GMAT test. It's a standardized test. People who have done them will know, but it's basically a graduate management admissions test, and it's 4 hours, standardized. It's got maths components. It's got geometry, algebra, all these short quizzes. It's got English, sentence correction, reading comprehension. And it's designed to it's like a standard model they use to rank all applicants. It's like a standard test score you can get. And it took me, I think, on my fourth attempt, I finally got the kind of ranking that I was after. I knew I had to reach like a certain rank to be able to be competitive for these schools. And each time I did those tests, I had to pack up, drive to Sydney, overnight in a hotel, go in, do the test, 4 hours, come back out. It was a lot of work. And so I planned all that in secret. Then I got an acceptance letter from Wharton School of Business, which was really incredible. And to me, that was the perfect opportunity to jump from the military. So I did do that. I left Duntroon. I was at the training academy in Duntroon, and I left and went to business school in the US. And it was such an eye-opener. It was so exciting to be in Philadelphia. I made new friends. I had 2 years of full-time study. I was away from the army. It was the rest that I needed, and the spiritual rejuvenation. I don't love that word, but it's something. I needed some sort of rejuvenation, and that was the perfect place to do it. And I think it was a whole new start. I was 32 years old, got to start all over again, enjoy life, not as a uni student in Canberra, but as a post-grad student in Philadelphia. It was just awesome. It was so much fun, and I still look back at my 2 years in Philadelphia as probably my favorite 2 years ever, because it was a chance for me to heal and find a new direction in life. And so once I left business school, I got started in the startup scene. I had this idea about building a startup over there, which would involve, I saw a huge gap in the market, right, with men's clothing. I wanted good clothes when I went over to Philadelphia. I couldn't find a brand that I really latched onto. They had these fashion-y values, which I really didn't love, because I'm kind of, we're from a different background. And I saw that the fashion world doesn't cater to people from my background. They don't cater to first responders or military or people that are like that. But I thought how cool it would be to have a brand that actually has the values of special ops, that mission team self-focus. They have the design attributes of special ops outerwear, high quality, that'd be so cool. So when I was at business school, I actually built some of the prototypes to a company I thought about building. I called it Kill Capture, built the prototypes, sold a few of them, and I've just kept going at that. We've been chipping away at that for years now, and it's a lot of fun to me because it's about recognizing that the cohort that we market to is quite different. Their needs are a bit different. What they're inspired by is totally different. So for me, that whole process of building that business I learned more doing that than I did, I think, in my MBA. That's been a lot of fun, and we still do it today. I've actually got a whiskey coming out real soon. Excited about that. Check it out, killcapture.com, capture with a K. Little plug for you right there. But I couldn't just rely on that startup. I went into a job in a consulting firm. I joined McKinsey & Company and spent about 3 years there as an apprenticeship. I think an MBA gives you enough knowledge when you're coming out of the military and you're a career transitioner. It gives you enough knowledge to be dangerous to just yourself. I think you do need a bit of an apprenticeship. McKinsey was mine. It was really tough training, really high quality processes. Funnily enough, I mentioned this before, the first thing they do in problem solving is talk about problem. Like, what problem are we trying to solve here? And they really get focused on that. And it taught me some of the disciplines that I didn't have in the military. They were really granular, really diligent with their quantitative approaches to problem solving. And that was great. I learned a lot of skills there. And then in 2017, that story that I mentioned before, I applied to Survivor because I thought that'll be really cool. I went on Survivor in Samoa. I met my wife, Samantha Gash, there, who's an amazing athlete and also an amazing entrepreneur. Like, she has courage in that world that I never had. And so she showed me how she does life. She was basically a paid speaker. She was writing a book. She's done all this stuff that I'd wanted to do. And she helped me, I guess, grow into that space as well. I moved back to Australia with Samantha. We had our little baby, Harry, who's 4.5 years old now. He's a little champion. Of all the stuff I've done, easily I'm the proudest of that, being a father and a husband. And I became a paid speaker as well. Sam put me in a few jobs, and I started off kind of low, charging small amounts and doing small jobs. And now over 3 years, gotten bigger and bigger at that. And Sam and I were lucky enough to go back on Survivor. We did that this year, and lo and behold, somehow I got through to the end. Ended up winning Australian Survivor, which surprised me a lot, but it was a lot of fun to go back a second time and have a crack at that. I'll do a podcast later about Survivor because we actually had some really deliberate planning we did for that, and we had some things we did really well, like when it came to planning. And I give Sam a lot of credit for that because she's a diligent planner. So I will talk about that later. But that in a nutshell, that's everything. I've been really lucky. I've done some great things in my life. I've worked bloody hard to get to some of these tough spots, and I think getting through all the issues that I had after serving the SAS is probably something I'm really proud of, because that's where I learned the importance of the human element of trying to go through this life and achieve these goals, but also being not wasting your life, not burying yourself in a field you don't want to be in. Choose something you really love, try and find a way to monetize it, and that will lead to a great life where you'll have more control. You'll be able to work with your family, your friends. You'll feel motivated to go to work every day. The difference for me now compared to when I was in the corporate sector is night and day. I used to dread Mondays. Now I'm actually like, yeah, let's go. I want to build something. So yeah, that's everything in a nutshell. I'm going to go deeper dives into all this the further along I go, but thanks for listening to everything. I will see you all real soon.
Thanks for listening. If you want to hear more, go to markwales.com.au. I have online course materials and all my outreach channels in just the one spot. And if you want to help in any way, please leave a strong review on Apple Podcasts. That helps me climb the ranks and reach more people. See you out there.